fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Sec's very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to the start of a new season in the Geodesic GoPro Championship. I've been very hyped for this one for many months since the conclusion of the last season. A new car, a new class structure, but the same insanely competitive GT racing. For SimSpeed TV here on the iRacing Esports Network, my name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, Jay Kennedy. And Jay, this is going to be a fantastic championship. This new class structure that the championship has gone for is really going to turn things up. We have got the Porsche Cayman GT4 in here in the GS class. So we've got GT and GS, your GT3s and your GT4s. Great format.
Yeah, 100%. Looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. A little disappointed to see the removal of the GTE because that class came right down to the wire last season. But most of the guys that ran in GTE last season have gone back to GT3. Most of the guys that ran GT3 have actually gone to the GS class in the GT4. So it's really interesting to see. And there are a few drivers that were up there in the championship in the GT class last season that have stuck around, but for the majority of the field that have returned for this season have swapped classes, staying in their classes, whether it's the top or the lower class. But the guys that have swapped are going to make it interesting, and there's a lot of new names in here too that are very, very competitive. I mean, qualifying has just been done in the GT class, top three separated by 1.5 tenths of a second. And at the moment, right now, the GS class qualifying is underway, and there's nothing separating those guys as well. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this season plays out, but this round plays out for the first time at Interlagos for this championship.
Yes, indeed. We are racing at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pass for this one. A fantastic, twisty, vintage F1 circuit. And it always turns it up for GT racing. It's flowing, it's got chicanes, it's got hairpins. There's a lot of places to fire one up the inside. But tell you what, with the difference between these classes, the Cayman in the GS class, obviously slower around the circuit by about 7 seconds at the top of the field. But it can be difficult to get past them, especially in those twisty bits.
Yeah, exactly. They do flow very well. They lose their time basically in straight line speed, but cornering speed is very, very similar between the two classes.
So we'll go to we'll keep an eye on what the times are looking like at the top of the GS class. And looking at the GS class, Brian Lockwood, the defending champion of the GTD class from last season. He's kept himself in the secondary class but moved cars. And he'll be up against the likes of Andrew Caron, Marcus Deck, and his rival from last season, John Miller. GS is looking like it's going to be a very good fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very competitive field, isn't it, GS? The guys at the front look really, really close. We'll do the same as last season, where we'll go through the flying pole laps for each class once this session is complete. But Karen at the moment on top, but what's that? A tenth of a second separating the top four, and then another 2 tenths back to 6. So we've got the top 6 cars separated by just over a quarter of a second.
Yeah, that's that's insane terms of pace differential. Of course, they are all driving the same car, but that only counts for so much. It shows that that the talent level is very close in this series, and we saw some fantastic races last season. We saw some controversial races last season. We're sure to see the same in 2020 for the Geodesic GoPro Championship. You see Tyson Meyer there on pole in the GT class. Their qualifying has already been done. And Rasim Fazui only half a tenth behind him there. So incredibly close as the checkered flag flies for qualifying. GS cars currently on their hot laps are allowed to finish them. And then we'll be able to set the grid fully and go through those pole positions.
Yeah, and Lockwood has improved his time, so he's into the very, very low 1 minute 39 bracket. So Andrew Caron's last attempt here. We'll see what he can do. I think this might be quick enough. And Marcus Deck's actually gone to the top of the timesheets. Caron crosses the line.
Oh.
No improvement. John Miller won't improve as well. So Lockwood's got the last chance to get it done.
And he's pushing it very hard there on the entry to Junsao and on the exit too. That might have been an off track. You can use a lot of that curb, but that's pushing it a bit. We'll see what Lockwood can do. You can really play around with the Cayman. It can slide around a bit if you want it to, and of course it does have the new version 7 tire model, and he is going to take that back to the pits. Obviously, his second place is under no threat, and he wasn't able to improve his time to get up to Marcus Deck in pole position. So we're still waiting for a couple of drivers to finish their laps. Justin Tipton will be coming across the line now. Setting a 39.492. He puts himself up to 4th in class. Excellent stuff from the Racecraft Esports driver. Alan Powell also on a lap. We got a coming up to the line as well. Oh no, Powell's pulling out of that one. What about Luis Henriquez? 41.808. Marcus Deck staying in pole position for now. So
Yeah,
it
safe
looks
by the
like
looks.
we're done.
Yeah. We won't see an improvement. Lavender's actually pulled into the pits as well. So we are done for qualifying. Deck, I think, will bring it around into the pits. So qualifying is done. We will queue up some flying laps and we'll get a bit of a look at how these cars behave around this circuit in just a moment. I'll queue them up now, Rex.
Yes, indeed. And the first one we're going to take a look at is our GT pole position of Tyson Meyer for Geodesic Racing. And Meyer seeing a lot of success last season. It'll certainly be interesting to see what he can do from here, especially considering he won't be driving in a GTLM car anymore. And interestingly enough, Meyer has gone for the Audi R8 GT3 for this one. We saw him in the BMW M8 in the GTLM class last season, but moving to the mid-engined Audi for this second season of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. We'll see how that goes for him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether it pays off for him. I'm not sure whether it will or not, but we know he's a quick driver, so potentially he shouldn't have too many issues. But one thing I'm surprised, he's not running the number one. I would have thought that he would have raced with the number one. I know, for me, I'd race with the number one. A little bit of an intimidation factor, but yeah, we'll see how this lap goes. Lap being a 1 minute 31.9.
Yeah, well, he is the reigning champion of the top class, so getting his season off to a good start, and you see the clean run he's got through the center S here. GT3 cars using traction control and ABS, but they are fully race-prepped versions of supercars and GT cars that you can go out and buy on the showroom floor. Decido de Lago, a very narrow entry and exit for that one. You've got to be careful of the off-tracks in this section of the circuit. But it's quite interesting what you can do up into this section past Ferradura, the double right. Once you start getting to this hairpin section, Jay, have a look at how big these curbs are, and Tyson Meyer's going to use all of it.
It's amazing how wide they are and how much you can use. I mean, you think back to like a track like Spa where the curbs are so narrow and you can't use any of them because they just stop so abruptly and you're off the circuit. But here, they are so wide, you can use so much of it, especially coming up right here, cut off to the right. You can use every single little bit. You can see the different color of the road from how worn in that concrete runoff is. So they're using every little bit they can, and very, very clean lap here from Tyson Meyer.
Yeah, incredibly clean, and down the final stretch he goes, the track kinking to the left and using that pit entry lane for a bit of extra time, and that ultimately was a 1 minute 31.902. And that puts him on pole position in our GT class. An excellent time there from Tyson Meyer. And now we're going to take a look at our GS pole position lap, Marcus Deck. And this is going to be the first time, at least for me, I've seen the Porsche Cayman 718 being driven to its maximum in a session. It's quite an interesting car to drive. It doesn't have as much of the aerodynamic assistance that a GT3 car has. For example, GT4, of course, meant to be a lower sort of stepping stone class to GT3. But these cars incredibly challenging to drive. They don't have the downforce. They do have the TC, the ABS, a bit of stability control as well. But still, very hard car to get the best out of.
Yeah, exactly right. One thing that everyone has said is how fun they are to drive, but sometimes fun cars aren't the easiest cars to get pace out of or extract pace out of. You find yourself, right in that midfield with guys that can extract the pace, but looking at the times that we've got in this session, there's 10 drivers within half a second. So we've seen drivers that know how to extract pace out of a fun and not overly quick car. So this is going to make for a very, very interesting race. But yeah, look at how smooth the control is from Deck. It's just looks like it's a casual drive, but the pace on the timesheet shows that it's definitely not.
Yeah, he's barely moving the steering wheel at all. You see him turning in there for Ferradura. Have a look at the wheel work here through the hairpins too. This would be where you see the most steering input, but just barely going beyond 90 degrees of lock to get around those turns. He's got that car set up very pointy, but of course the Cayman also being mid-engined, you kind of need to stab on the throttle on exit and sort of trust in the exit oversteer, because that's the way you get a really good launch. This thing does like to squat and squirm on exit, but if you take advantage of that, particularly out of here at Junsao, you get a really good run down the front stretch, and you're going to carry that all the way to the start-finish line. So this was the end of a 39.212 for Marcus Deck, and that puts him on pole position for the GS class by 500ths of a second.
Interesting, both classes separated by 500ths of a second as well. So how close is that for our racing that we've got coming up? But another thing I just noticed there is how little curb Marcus Deck used in comparison to Tyson Meyer. The apex curbs were not being used anywhere near as aggressively. Thanks again to Building Optimization Systems for their support of the series behind the scenes. Again, we'll cover us with the replays once again for this season. But yeah, that's one thing I noticed there, was that the apex curbs were not being used anywhere near as much. So interesting to see if that could catch some drivers out when it comes time for class overtakes. If they're not using as much curb, are some of the GT drivers thinking that the GS drivers are going to let them through when it's just them taking a slightly different line?
Yeah, that is something you got to consider, because, yeah, I think the reason behind using a bit less curb in the GS is because the lack of downforce and the slightly less grippy tires means that you kind of need to keep it on the tarmac when you're applying the throttle in order to get the best exit. I know driving the Cayman around Sebring, for example, you hit those curbs in the wrong way, it completely ruins your run down the following straight. So you want to try and keep the car as level and as stable as possible.
Exactly right. You want to make sure you're as smooth as you can be. And of course, pit stops will be a factor in this race too. Heard from all the drivers that it will be a fuel-only stop in both classes, purely due to the amount of time that it will take to do fuel and tyres. Of course, both classes of cars do fuel and tyres separately, so we will not see any tyre stops. 90-minute race will make it very, very interesting to see who can make those tyres last.
Yeah, it certainly will. We've got less than a minute to go then
through the
before
grid, hey?
this race. 1 hour and 30 minutes, Jay. It's going to be this one. And yeah, we will go through the grid, the starting grid for the GT class then. Tyson Meyer on pole position for Geodesic Racing, but Movano Sim Racing Team's Rasim Fazui joins him on the front row. Jesper Druleka, we saw some interesting performances from him last season in the GTD class. He remains in the same car this season. Johan Boysen joining him on the front row. Zach Plummer and Christian Challoner on row 3. That's an interesting matchup. See how they go. Aaron Ackles and Jack Anderek on row 4, with Adam Crane and Hayden Gober rounding out the top 10 in our GT class.
Yeah, we've got a 19-car field in GT. We've got Will Hardiman and Stacey Dunnigan on the 6th row. 7th row will be Older Stefanowski and Dan King, with Elijah Mitchell and Mark Noski. We've got Andrew Taylor, Chris Ugletta, and Jason Goddard. The 19 cars we've got for GT, but that's not it. We've got GS as well.
Yeah, certainly. Marcus Deck in the number 718 car, incidentally, starting on pole position, with Brian Lockwood joining him on the front row. Lockwood, the defending champion of the secondary class, so interesting matchup there. Andrew Caron making a move to the secondary class. He starts in third. Justin Tipton joining him on the second row. John Miller, Brian Lockwood's championship rival, shares row 3 with Graham Sanders. Shinya Michimi comes in 7th place, with Giovanni Romano joining him on the 4th row. John Botifer and Sam Holden rounding out the top 10 there for Big Bone Racing.
We got Luke, you're going to have to help me here, Reese. Wojciech, well done. Glad you said that. Justin Reb on row 6, Alan Powell and Andreas Espinoza on row 7. We've got 15th and 16th. We've got Caleb John Lavender and Riley Downey. We've got Chris Roberts and David Browning in 17th and 18th and 19th position. Luis Henriquez, which means we've got 38 car field total out of the 50 qualifiers. Very, very good turnout for round 1. And of course, there's some prizes as well for the drivers. I don't know if you've actually seen the little note that we just got sent before. $25 in cash for the driver in each class with the lowest incident point count at the end of the race. So
All right.
nice little prize money. Of course, we've seen prizes throughout the series the whole way through. So we'll see how that plays out, and whether anyone decides to just race for the money. Of course, if there is a tie in regards to that, the driver that finishes higher will get the prize, but also prizes throughout the series as well. Another GoPro up for grabs for each class as well, which is cool.
Yeah, certainly. We got to remember GoPro committing to this championship, and massive thanks to GoPro for staying on board with this series for another season. The class winners will receive a GoPro Hero 7. That's going to be fantastic. Actual prizes on offer really increases the passion of these drivers. They've got something to fight for. And, big benefit here, we've got almost a 50-50 split of the classes in this race, and a great turnout for both of them. I can't wait for this season to kick off.
Yep, cannot wait either. It looks like maybe having a standing start, which may catch a few drivers out. I think that may have been a little bit of an error in the setting up of the series, but
Yeah,
that might catch a few drivers out. We'll see if Race Control have got a backup plan for that. Maybe they'll let the drivers roll away and have a manual rolling start, but we'll see how we go. But if we do go green right now, this will be very, very spicy.
Yeah.
Hopefully they all get through okay.
Well, that's the thing with a standing start in these GT cars. All of these cars have the ability to use traction control, and you can toggle it off for standing starts, but a lot of drivers forget to do that, myself included. So these things are very hard to get off the line from a standing start. We'll find out very shortly if we end up going for the manual rolling start. It's a 2-minute gridding period here at Interlagos, so everyone just sitting on the grid for now, waiting for the time to go down, and then we'll be able to find out how things play out in Season 2 of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Confirmed that Race Control says we're doing 1 manual pace lap, so everyone's pulling away, staying in formation, and we'll be able to go racing at the end of this lap, Jay.
Very, very good to see that they've done that. Of course, the other factor with that is how cold the tyres would be, so it could be very, very dangerous. So Very, very good call. It'll give the drivers a chance to warm the tyres up, and then we'll go green at the end of the lap. Very, very well done to race control for making that call. Not an easy call to make because it's a very, very confusing situation, but yeah, it will be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, look, I think it is the right decision to consider tyre temp as well, because all of these cars are now using iRacing's new version 7 tyre model, which obviously requires you to get some heat into the tyres before they can be at their quickest. So they end up driving like death on cold tyres, which is reflective of real life, depending on who you talk to, and it's going to be quite the interesting challenge for these drivers getting those tyres up to temperature. It's going to be, we might see some big slides in these opening laps and a couple of spins. First round of the season, everyone's still getting used to the new playing field, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, of course, the other thing with that is you've got to manage how much you push the tyres, and you've also got to manage the drivers around you as well. So if you're in the lead and you know that someone's not going to manage the tyres as much, but can handle that at the same time, you're going to have to work yourself a little bit harder. So, for example, if Tyson Meyer knows that Jesper Dralica behind is very, very good on cold tyres, he then knows that he has to push harder to stay ahead. So there's that extra element around the tyres as well that is an extra factor that some of these drivers will have to consider throughout this series, which I'm excited about. It should be very, very interesting. Of course, throughout the series as well, GT class, everything will show up on our overlays as red. GS class will show up as green, as per last season, as well as we get ready to go officially green this time.
Yes, so it'll be up to Tyson Meyer when he goes. There will be a restart zone down here on the front stretch. It's 2 Audis and 2 McLarens that lead up our GT field, and the GS class has pulled back to make sure there's a gap between the classes. We'll be getting the green flag imminently. Tyson Meyer coming through. One of the final kinks here, still holding 90 kilometers an hour, and we will see when he decides to go. Green, green, green from race control, and it looks like Tyson Meyer missed that call a bit. Rasim Fazui has gotten an excellent jump there at the front of the GT field, and he goes defensive versus Jesper Dralica, but he still fires it up the inside, or attempts to anyway. Tyson Meyer very late on the brakes into turn 1, but leading your GT class race, Rasim Fazui. Everyone getting through turn 1 clean in the GT class. What about GS?
Oh, no.
Marcus Deck leading the way, but there is a bit of an incident in the back of the pack. A car around. That was Sam Holden. He has to get going once again.
Yep, and he's done it without any damage too, which is good to see. Zach Plummer's applying pressure to Jesper Dralica, and Boyson as well, around the outside of Christian Challoner. That's not an easy move to make.
No, certainly not. That's crazy there. And oh my goodness, pushing a bit too hard. Johan Boyson into Ferradura. Aaron Ackles having to check up there, and Jack Anderek getting involved in this as well. That McLaren is very hard to drive at the best of times, so Boyson has got his hands full. Jesper Dralica, though, up into 3rd place, and our leaders, oh goodness me, that's Chris Uglietta with a spin in the hairpin section. Not a good start to his season in his Mercedes. There is his teammate in the GS class making his way around in the number 44, Alan Powell.
Another
And,
incident.
oh no, oh no. Okay, that is Zach Plummer, and that was actually he was running up in the top 5, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
See what's happening
So we'll
here.
get building optimization systems replay here. See what happened to Zach Plummer, and he might have come together with Christian Schnell. No, he didn't. All on his own there on the cold tyres coming up to Junsao. And it looks like the other car, Will Hardeman, lost it all on his own as well.
The exact same thing. Go back to the leaders, though. It is on. Tyson Meyer trying to hunt down the rear of Fazui here.
Yeah, this is a great race here up the front. We're only on lap 3 of what's going to be a 90-minute race, 1:25 to go. And Fazui, well, he managed to get the lead off the start, and that's fortunate, but we know how pacey Tyson Meyer is. Fuzui was able to match him pretty well on qualifying pace, but how they're going to go on race pace, it's all going to be about how quickly they can get those tyres into their operating range. Oh, Boyson, another problem.
Yeah, off again. So, said last lap that he ran wide through here, and he's done it again, but has he been helped? No, he's just run wide. A little bit of a slide. Oh, keeping out of the wall.
Only just.
Good save.
Oof. Very good save, Johan.
Have to recover that a little bit. Now, interesting that the back of the pack now with Zach Plummer with that incident, now right in front of Marcus Deck, and that's helped Andrew Caron now close that gap in, and just behind there you can see Justin Tipton not too far away from Brian Lockwood, so top four not separated by a huge amount at the moment.
Yeah, Lockwood and Tipton in the Racecraft Esports liveried cars. You can tell by the white, black, and gold. That's an interesting wheel color choice for Justin Tipton. Kind of clashes with the livery, but you do you, mate. Oh, hold on a minute. That's side-by-side action in our GT class. Adam Crane, that's for 8th position there versus that BMW. And Dan King for Geodesic Racing looking to get in on that as well, battling back in the top 10.
Going to go back up the field a little bit, because this is what we saw all last season, is there's battles everywhere. First all the way back to last, there is someone to fight and battle with in this field. So Dralica and Challen are now going at it for 3rd and 4th, of course, with that issue for Zach Plummer. Put one less car in between this battle, but Challen is looking very, very quick at the moment. 3rd fastest car out there behind for Zooey and Meyer. So Christian Challener on a charge.
Yeah, that BMW Z4, it's a very old car. It's actually the 2nd oldest GT3 car on the iRacing service after the McLaren that we're riding on board with for Jesper Dralica. So these two cars are veterans of GT racing on iRacing, but they still show a lot of pace. You can still be competitive in those cars.
You can teach an old dog new tricks, and these old girls love, love, love. No offense to the beautiful cars that they are, but they are a little bit older, but they do still go very, very hard. But the Audis have been very, very quick over the past little while as well. So Audi looks like it might be the car to beat, but the good thing is we've got all 5 of the eligible cars in this series. So we've got the Audi, we've got the McLaren, we've got the BMW, we've got the Ferrari and the Mercedes as well. So all 5, and of course the Porsches in the the GS class as well. So 6 different marks out there for this series.
Yeah, and speaking of our GS classes, the lead stays safe for now. It looks like that top 3 battle in the GS class is starting to heat up, because Andrew Caron is... oh, hello. Dan King's still trying to get onto the back of Adam Crane there. This is an interesting fight between the two Mercedes still. Oh dear, is that Boyson? Oh, things have just gotten worse for him in that McLaren, off by the side of the road. Don't know if that's going to be a caution or not. We'll see what happened to him on this building optimization systems replay. Oh no! Okay.
We definitely need another look at that.
Yeah, not sure how to call that one. Obviously, Noski, would you class that as blocking?
Well, yes,
not quite sure. Well,
it's definitely a defensive move, isn't it? It's gone one way and then back the other. And I think
yeah, I think Boyson was caught out there.
Yeah, committed too much too early, I think.
Well, he's been granted a tow by race control, so he's back in the pits now as Johan Boyson. It's a shame for him. He started very well, but it's going to be a hard battle for him if he wants to get good points out of this first round of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. But this lead in our GT class is still just as heated as it was. Tyson Meyer only a few tenths back from Racim Fuzui, who's doing a stellar job of defending here.
Definitely is. He's not succumbing to any pressure behind. Last lap by was actually the fastest car on track by setting the fastest lap of the race so far. So very, very quick pace between these two guys. The only other drivers to get into the 1:32 at the moment are Dralica and Challenger, and they've just done that on that last lap. So the pace is well and truly there for these front 2 guys. They look like they might be the class of the field, and be interested to see if they can maintain the pace throughout the season. Of course, a whole heap of different tracks and also different formats this season as well. We'll talk about them later, but Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if this is going to be how we're going to see the rest of the season with these two guys battling as hard as they are right now.
Yeah, certainly sets things up well for the remainder of this season. Looking at the GS class, we're seeing the top 4 have come together. Marcus Deck still holding on to the lead from Andrew Caron, but those two racecraft guys, Lockwood and Tipton, they are starting to put the pressure on him.
Definitely are. The gap is closing, and I've just seen change for the lead. Tyson Meyer is through.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, we've missed that just then. That caught me completely off guard on my timing screen. I just saw it light up. I'm like, how did that happen? So we definitely need a replay to work out how that's unfolded. Also see Hayden Gober is in the pits as well. So interesting to see him in the pits this early, whether it's a penalty or for damage or something else, not sure, but he is taking service. Tyson Meyer into the lead. He's just got a great run, I think. He's just thrown it up the inside, or has he gone the long way? Up the inside.
He tried for it up the outside, but Fazui covered him off there. So outbreaking move into the center S, the opening sequence of turns, and that was all she wrote. And Tyson Meyer ahead, and it seems pulling away.
He's already got the gap out to about half a second, so starting to pull a little bit of a gap. But, we were just talking about the guys behind Deck, that being Caron, Lockwood, and Tipton. They've all pulled away about 4 seconds, but Brian Lockwood is the fastest car in this group, just set the fastest lap of the race in this class at a 1 minute 39.5. And he's right behind Andrew Caron now, looking to get this move done.
Yeah, the tyres have really come up to temperature now for Brian Lockwood, and he's got a lot of confidence under him now in that machine. Caron trying to cover the inside there at Ferradura. Can he fire one up the inside here? No. It's you got to be careful about how you take care of the tyres in this thing, because you go for that move, you use up all that grip, and you're not going to be able to defend later on.
Just seeing that Hayden Gober has come out of the pits, a 42-second pit stop. That's a very long stop. I'm wondering, I'm a little bit suspicious that he may have left qualifying fuel in the car and has had to come in and put fuel in the car.
Yeah, that might be a possibility. We'll have to wait and see, but Andrew Caron not getting the best exit from Jun Sao. He's given the run to Lockwood here, and slipstreaming down the front stretch is going to be the way to go. Lockwood's going to be forced to go to the outside here, but it is possible to overtake around the outside at the center S. Depends on how confident both of these guys are. Caron maintaining the inside, but Lockwood manages to get that grip beautifully around the outside, and he takes the position.
Great move. You said it could be done around the outside, and you've also said that if drivers have got confidence, will know that how good Lockwood is. So there was no doubt in the confidence in Brian Lockwood's ability, and just drove it around the outside absolutely beautifully. So Lockwood into second position. Wonder how long it will be before he catches Marcus Deck. The issue he's got is while they were battling there, Deck has now pulled a 1.7 second gap out at the front of the field. You can see how big that gap is now, just from that one little lap of battling. So this is going to be a little bit of a tough slog for Lockwood here to try and get that gap back. But if anyone in this field can do it, it is Brian Lockwood. The talk all week has been about Brian Lockwood's pace and whether he has been sandbagging and not showing his true form in practice. I'm thinking you might have just been holding back a little bit, just driving at 98%. And yeah, I think he's ready to go and put the hammer down and maybe get going forward. As one issue that they will have as well, in about 2 laps time, Hayden Gober will be in this battle as he brings himself back through the field.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that, because a GT car in the middle of a pack of GSs, it's a bit awkward at the best of times, and Gober's going to have to be careful how he goes about it. But we'll see what happens. Interlagos is a very wide track in places. There's a lot of room to stake out a spot. Meanwhile, just outside the top 10 in our GT class, Olga Stepanovsky chasing Zach Plummer, chasing Mark Noski. And these guys have been battling quite consistently since the very start. Hasn't been a great day so far for Action Sim Sport, but certainly it looks like Zach Plummer putting huge pressure on Noski at the moment.
One thing about the action guys from last season was they always capitalised on a bad result. Even if they had a bad result, they still plugged away, and still scored decent points. It wasn't top scoring points, but they still kept going and still scored points. And I think that was a big key to them last season, because they scored points in every race because they kept pushing on. So despite the fact that Gober and Plummer haven't had a great start to the race, they'll push on. And he's going to be a position here for Noski, because Noski's pace does not look anywhere near as good at the moment. Last lap or the lap previous, he was about 1 second slower than Plummer, and again 7/10. So Mark Noski may need to tweak the setup at the pit stop. We're not far off pit window being open. A huge pit window for these drivers in this race. So interesting to see how we go and where the pit stops happen.
Yes, indeed. No move for now. And oh my goodness, you see how deep Mark Noski is going into the corners there. Oh my goodness, our GS class leader all the way back to 7th there, and possibly standing to lose more. And that was up past Junsao. So
Yeah.
it's like he might have pushed too hard in the final proper corner of the lap.
Just run it too wide out in the blue concrete bit there. I think it's unsettled the car. No, run too wide onto the AstroTurf and onto the grass. Around he went.
Ah, that's such a shame
Wow.
there. But you know, you put a wheel into the grass off one of those curbs, and there's not much you can do to save it from there. Of course, this thing does have driving aids, but even they can't save you from that. That's a big shame for our leader, former leader in GS, but that does mean Brian Lockwood now has the lead of this race, and it's a double podium provisionally here for Racecraft Esports.
Wow, I was not expecting that, because Deckard looks so good. And,
Here comes
makes that
Plummer.
mistake. Yep. Gober coming back through after his pit stop.
Gober, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Tipton also has looked really quick since Lockwood has got through on Karen. It's sort of given Tipton a little bit of extra pace somehow. Maybe he's just feeling a little bit more confident, seeing that Lockwood's being able to use the car in a bit more of an aggressive way. Tipton was able to capitalise. I mean, he's a little bit behind now just due to that lap car, or sorry, the coming through car of Gober. But Lockwood also, after that incident with the car of Deck, he may have lost a tiny little bit of pace. So I've just confused myself on what I'm trying to say, because I've said that he's going quick but going slow at the same time. So Caron, though, is now gone from looking like the one holding the pack up to being the pace setter again. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it does seem like that. Yeah, and I would agree, because obviously Lockwood having to go wide in the final corner to let Gober go there, but it seems like in the midst of all of that, Tipton falling back just slightly, but all of these guys still running consistent lap times, a 40.4 for Lockwood. Oh, hello. That's another Racecraft car there making a move down at Descida de Lago. Racecraft. Oh, goodness. Yeah, so John Miller, we saw he had excellent pace last season, and he's trying his best here versus Graham Sanders. Even trying to look up the inside of Ferradura.
How was the understeer there through turn 4?
Yeah, it's crazy. He wasn't quite able to get the front hooked up. You've got to be very careful, because you push too hard on those fronts, activate the anti-lock brakes or anything like that, the car just plows. You've got to be very smooth with this Cayman GT4. But getting a good view of this is Shinya Machimi behind these two.
Mashimi's done a very, very good job, kept it nice and consistent so far. So doing a nice little job. Just seeing Hayden Gober's gained a spot actually out on track, and Suglietta, we saw him have issues earlier on in the race. I actually see a bit of damage to the rear of his car, so I'm wondering if that's hampering his straight line speed a little bit. You can see a nice big ding right in the rear bumper, so I don't think it'll be impacting his speed too much, but you never know sometimes how it can actually upset what is behind the panel. It's sort of strange when you think about how that works. And look at this, the leaders now in traffic, and that has helped Mizui. He's gained a second on that lap.
Yeah, he certainly has. That's really helped him there. John Miller, meanwhile, has gotten by Graham Sanders in the center S,
no.
but they're still fighting incredibly hard. Sanders trying to come back at Miller, but nothing doing for the moment. And it looked like a nice draft and up the inside move there for John Miller to get up into 4th in the GS class. It's amazing how far ahead the top 3 are in this class.
7 seconds. Almost 8 seconds the top 3 are ahead. Marcus Deck not far away from getting on the rear of these guys as well. So that will make that little battle pack very, very interesting. But I'm sure these guys will be happy to see that Marcus Deck is now going to get in that battle pack rather than have an easy ride back to the front of the field, because he would be hoping for an easy ride. These 3 guys here will be hoping he's stuck in traffic and stuck working his way through.
Yeah, well, Deck's just been passed by Rasim Fazui, who's making his way through the traffic. And we're seeing Tyson Meyer as well, just getting held up slightly by John Miller, but a good run onto the straight nonetheless. So there's the gap for the leaders making their way through.
Just trying to get word through from race control around what may have happened with Hayden Gober, but as I just see Marcus Deck through on Mashimi, so that move's happened very, very quickly. He was a full 1.5 seconds quicker that time was Deck over Mashimi, so we're going to see Marcus Deck in that battle between Sanders and Miller, which is going to make it very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, and we should expect him there within a couple of laps with the pace that they're going. Maybe a bit less, considering they got Christian Challoner coming through in the GT Class BMW here. Having to go wide is Graham Sanders, so that's going to give a little bit of an advantage to Marcus Deck. You see that the cars are pretty much even now coming through Ferradura, so it's only a matter of time.
Another thing that I want to keep one eye on while we're watching these guys go very, very hard in this battle is Jesper Dralikas closing in very, very quickly on the lead too. The pace he's had in the last few laps has been incredible. He's, nearly a second quicker the last 2 laps from the guys ahead. So Dralika is one to watch in the next couple of laps. He's closed in so quickly on Fazui.
Yeah, crazy lap time there. 33.1 on the last lap, a 33.8 on the last lap for Fazui. So I think Dralika has managed to get his McLaren into its operating window right when the guys in front of him have been struggling to get by traffic. Rasim Fazui, speaking of, goes for the move there on Tipton, and Dralika had a bit of a look at that, but decided not to go for it right away. So he's going to have to wait until the end of the center S here. Oh, this is going to be awkward. Tipton at a bit of a disadvantage there, having to stick to the inside. And what's going to happen here versus Andrew Caron? Oh, goodness me. It is going to hurt Lockwood. Dralika right up the inside. Lockwood having to go wide there. Manages to cover off Andrew Caron for now, but the battle is now on.
That was very, very lucky and great driving there from Ryan Lockwood to make sure he didn't lose that spot, because he could have lost a spot to Caron, and even more just the way that pass was going to happen there to Dralika. Dralika did nothing wrong. It's just unfortunate there for Lockwood how it happened. But how close are these front 3 now in this class? And that will give probably a second back to Marcus Deck on his way through. He's also got past Graham Sanders and now hunting down John Miller. So he'll be back in 4th before we know it.
For sure. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Meanwhile, Olda Stepanovsky and Mark Noski are currently the closest battle on track in the GT class. Oh, goodness me. Lockwood running a bit wide there. That's going to give the run to Andrew Caron, potentially. Hard to tell how much the slipstream is worth at Interlagos, especially in these slower cars, but you really see it having an effect right at the end here. Caron having a look up the inside, but he knows he's not quite close enough to put a move for now, so he'll settle for moving around in Lockwood's mirrors.
Another thing will be Lockwood knows that you can get a move done around the outside, so he won't know what to do if Caron was there close enough, but I think Caron did a great job through the S.
He did.
And now, have a look at this. He's going to get this potentially done Lockwood's going to have to defend hard here.
Yeah, he blocked a little, then moved back to the racing line, using all of the curb through Interlagos. You can tell Caron is now completely switched on, having another little look on the run up to Ferradura. It's not an easy corner to put a move on, and we're getting a replay here, Jay.
Yeah, Older Stefanowski had just got past Mark Noski and then lost the spot back here. So we're just going to get a replay as to what happened. I did see him going at around about 20 kilometers an hour. So it's been an issue here of some sort.
Is it contact? It is. Yeah, and that is a classic Interlagos thing. He tried a turn for turn 2 after making a move up the inside, and it turns out the car you just tried passing is still there. John Miller, oh no, having an incident here, and that was contact with Marcus Deck.
Yep. They've come together.
Oh.
Sheemy and Sanders have gone on. Deck's redressed the position, but it's gone from bad to worse for Marcus Deck. So that's happened while we were watching that original replay. As we come back live, Lockwood's now been able to pull a little bit of a gap. And Caron now under pressure from Tipton. Caron defending down the front straight.
Yeah, this would have been due to the Audi of Jack Anderek making his way through that top 3 in the GS class. So it's disadvantaged Caron slightly, but Justin Tipton has been given a lifeline here. That's the way things flow in traffic. Aaron Ackles with a problem there for Quasar Sim Racing. Very nice looking car. We're seeing some great looking liveries in this series once again. But I'm sure Ackles would prefer that that livery is kept on, the black stuff. Let's see what happened to him here. Looks like just a bit too hard into the first turn, losing the rear end in that mid-engine Ferrari.
Yet another classic Interlagos incident there, isn't it? Very, very common incident. You almost can predict where your incident's going to happen at this circuit. You know that it's going to be in the center S, turn 4, in the last couple of corners, more than likely. So occasionally you'll see something happen here, but for the most part, most of the drivers are aware now there is not a spot that you try and get through. It makes it very, very difficult because you lose so much momentum. Marcus Deck will probably be a little bit sheepish after that incident earlier as well. So Deck will probably just be toning it down a little bit, trying to get his rhythm back, see how he goes.
Yeah, well, he's escaped the wrath of race control for now. That incident with Miller has been deemed a racing incident, no further action. So play on, boys. And Deck getting hard on the throttle there, and an excellent exit from Junsao, but they got a GT car to contend with there. That's Mark Noski making his way past them. But Deck has the run here. Oh no, what's the Ferrari going to do here on the outside? Oh, 3 wide briefly down the front stretch. Now, can Miller hold on to the outside in the center S versus Marcus Deck? Deck is later on the brakes. He's ahead at the apex. They make contact. Deck sent into a spin. He is around. And that was very light contact at the end of the day.
Very minimal contact between the two, but you almost could predict that was going to happen because we know how aggressive Deck has been now to try and get himself back up the field. And yeah, it wasn't much in that at all, was there? It's very, very minimal contact.
Yeah, that is a shame. I would presume that would be deemed a racing incident by race control as well. Let's take a look at the onboard view then. You see Deck pop into frame there, and a bit of rear end contact, and yeah. Interesting way that spin eventuated. So unfortunate for Marcus Deck. He's after qualifying on pole, quite the poor race for him so far as the first half hour comes to its close, but we're only a third of the way in. We're taking a look at the battle for 7th and 8th between John Botifer and Giovanni Romano, who is running, I think, what is one of my favorite liveries in this field. A very pleasant shade of lavender purple for his lavender racing machine.
It's a little bit different, isn't it? Stands out, not over the top. We see some drivers or some teams just go a little bit too over the top when they go for the different colour or alternate coloured liveries, but that's just a nice, relaxing shade of lavender purple. So Romano's car looking very, very nice out there. I'm just going to cut away from that though, because there's a battle going on in GT as well. They've just changed positions just before the finish line there between Crane and Dunnigan. So these two are going at it quite aggressively as well.
Yeah, they definitely are. Crane just making his way through on Dunnigan there. 34.1 on his last lap. 34.5 for Dunnigan. So it looks like Crane with the advantage, but you see Dunnigan trying that early turn in line to the hairpin. It's a way that you can gain a bit of track position on the car in front of you, but it doesn't quite benefit your run through the rest of the section. So it looks like Crane is pulling away there from Dunnigan.
Yeah, looks like that is how this battle will go on for now. So we are into the final hour, so pit stop window well and truly open. Probably the next 35 minutes or so we will see drivers come in. More than likely will go as long as they can, so they've got the fresh tyres, sorry, the least amount of fuel in the car at the end of the race. It'd be interesting to see if anyone does take tyres. There is potential for some drivers to maybe throw out an alternate move and take tyres and try and come back through the field. So we'll see how we go. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th position with nothing to lose maybe try something like that and see if they've got any extra pace right at the end of the race. So we'll see how that plays out as Marcus Deck gets a move done.
It's a change for the lead in GS. Meanwhile, Jake, as Brian Lockwood was forced wide by Jason Goddard, making his way through. So Andrew Caron is now just in the lead of this race in the GS class, but Lockwood trying his best to hold it around the outside of Interlagos. It's going to be a double-pronged attack on Andrew Caron from the Racecraft Esports guys. Have a look at Lockwood. Can he make it up the inside of Ferradura? Yes, he can. Very fast entry into that turn. Caron has to slot back in behind, but the battle is on. Caron trying the over-under and going up the inside into the hairpins. This is a great battle. Look at Lockwood. He's going for it again.
This is awesome to watch between these two. We sort of thought at the start of the season, or before the season started, that these two would be right at the top along with Marcus Deck, which we gathered from Pace John Miller as well. So these guys are putting on a great show right now, and coming through here is Ackles, and he'll probably be happy just sitting back and watching these guys fight like this, but he'll get them done on the straight, and they'll be able to continue their battle. May help Lockwood here a little bit into turn one.
Yeah, well, Caron trying to go to the inside there, but he saw Aaron Ackles making his way through, and Caron, a little bit of a disadvantage there because Lockwood is now in the slipstream. They got another GT3 coming up on them of Mark Noski. He'll be making his way through in the next couple of corners. He tries to go up the inside. Oh, just pulling out of that, waiting for the next straight. We've got a car coming out of the pits too for the GS class. Riley Downey making his way back onto the circuit after suffering some damage.
We missed what that damage had come from, but he has brought it into the pits, come back out. He's a full lap behind guys in his class, but he can make it home from here, so he will potentially get the lap back depending on how his pace goes. Definitely some positions still to be made in this race. But Caron now, how will he go leading the field? Of course, we've seen Lockwood lead for quite a while. We saw Marcus Deck lead for quite a while. We saw Caron lead for a little bit. But now, how will Caron go with the lead, considering how much traffic there is? As Lockwood tries to go around the outside there. That's not something you would normally see, but Lockwood is a very, very intelligent driver. Knows where to make moves in places that drivers normally wouldn't even attempt.
Yeah, well, they've got two GT3 cars coming up behind them, so there's probably going to be some things coming up that even Brian Lockwood would not attempt. Through they go on his teammate, Olda Stepanovsky and Will Hardiman. That's the battle for 13th position in our GT class, and Lockwood having to take slight avoiding action there.
Oh,
Stepanovsky had to back off there. He's not quite sure where to go. Caron has to stay in the middle here as the GTs go around him, 3 wide down the front stretch, and Caron flashing his lights there. What are you guys doing?
Hardiman got a spot out of that too.
Yeah, he did too. So that poor run there from Stepanovsky having to check up. giving the advantage to Hardiman, but the advantage will be given back to Stepanovsky on the back stretch. Sorry, you see Brian Lockwood trying to make a move here on Caron. No, he's staying behind a bit here. Interesting.
If Lockwood now's taking this opportunity, knows that he's got a fairly decent gap back to the guys that he thinks he might be contending with in the championship. Of course, Caron just ahead. But is he now taking this opportunity to save a dash of fuel? Is that what is going on here for Brian Lockwood? That could be something that we see. I mean, you never know how some of these drivers are going to play these races, but always a possibility with some of these very, very intelligent drivers out in these fields. The alternate fuel strategy and bizarre fuel-saving games start to happen at this point. He has dropped off a little bit on this lap too, so it wouldn't surprise me if that's what's going on right now.
Yeah, you got to think about the fuel-saving game, don't you? Because these races, 90 minutes long, and of course, only pitting for fuel will these guys, although we might see some take tyres, but fuel is going to be the main deciding factor. So...
Dralica last lap, race was very, very slow. He's actually lost a spot to Challoner, so he missed that on the last lap.
He's got damage on the front right, too.
Yeah, he does.
Okay. So something's happened there to Jesper Dralica. I'll go back quickly, Jay, and see if I can find what happened to him.
He, last lap by was 5 seconds slower than Challoner, so definitely...
Oh, yeah.
I think he's had an incident with another car, potentially, or he's hit the wall at some point.
Yeah, it was the second one, and it was on his lap 22. It was coming through the third turn of the Senna S. He just got a bit of oversteer on the inside curb, and then got a tank slapper, went into the outside wall coming through this turn here that we're seeing Giovanni Romano go through. So that's why Jesper Dralica has lost that amount of pace and track position.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that McLaren proving the twitchy, difficult car to drive as ever.
It's a strange beast, this McLaren. It's why we love her. It's an interesting car, and yeah, drivers really do struggle with it. So Dralica will probably try and limp it back for his scheduled pit stop. Hopefully there's not too much damage to the front of the car, but he'll push on. No doubt about that. You'll see if he can close up to Challoner, who's now starting to pull a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, Challoner doing very well in that BMW. Kept the car completely clean here. It's been a good run from Challoner so far, and sitting in third at the moment, so sitting pretty coming into the pit stop window. And Dralica noticing he was 5/10 quicker on the last lap, but that's probably going to eventuate at some point. And we take a look at Marcus Deck, who's leading this pack here of Romano and Botifer. Deck trying his best to get back up in the field after his earlier crash and spin, 2 separate incidents. So it has not been a great start to the season for Marcus Deck, but he's certainly shown that that he has the ability to fight up the front.
100%. He'll try and basically do a bit of... oh, geez, who's that throwing up? I think it's that Tyson Meyer going through. Just come from nowhere to get through.
And
so,
that's going to be a position change. Yeah. So Giovanni Romano through. Jinx.
Well done, you got me.
But
Lockwood's dropping. Now, Lockwood's pace is not there.
Well, we do have to think. We got to remember in the recent patch, iRacing made sure that the tires came up to temperature quicker in the Cayman, so could potentially be a problem there for Lockwood, just burning through the tires. Either that, or he's focusing now fully on the fuel saving.
The other thing they did do in the patch too was increase the tyre wear so that it made it a little bit more difficult to double or triple stick tyres. So wondering if Lockwood hasn't been able to test as much. Of course, now has qualified for the Porsche Esports Super Cup, which we did broadcast a qualifying series here on SimSpeed, and he did make it in. He's one of the top 20, so congratulations to Brian. But yeah, maybe he hasn't done quite enough testing in regards to long runs and the tyres have gone away. I'm not sure. It's saying that last lap it was a 10th quicker again. So yeah, I think it's fuel. I think he's just trying to save a dash of fuel here and a dash of fuel there to try and get a little bit of pace in that stop.
Yeah, that makes the most sense at the moment. Still early days in this race. We're only just coming up to the halfway point. And oh no, that is a problem for Will Hardiman up at the run-up to Junsao. And that is a very heavy amount of damage on his bonnet. I think he might have found the wall there.
I think you're right. I think he's actually hitting the tyres on the inside here. As he's going forward, car loops around, he'll overcorrect it and go to the outside here.
Ah, yep, there we go. Oh, and head on into the wall. That's a big hit there for Hardiman. A lot of damage to deal with. He'll be in the pits for a while getting that fixed.
It's continuing on, so I'm guessing he's going to see how bad the car is for a lap and then come in and get damage fixed if he needs to. So not a good sign to have that much of an impact though, as just seeing cars coming out of the pits in our GT class. Ugletta just about to come out of the pits. But it's on for 4th and 5th here because Graham Sanders and Shinya Machimi have been going at it for quite a while. We haven't really paid too much attention because they've just been separated by 7 tenths, 8 tenths for a long time. But I think Machimi's had a little bit of enough of looking at the back of that purple and orange car just ahead. The number 100 might feel a bit of pressure behind us. We've got another incident back in the field.
Oh no.
Dunnigan off the circuit.
Yeah, okay, so Dunnigan will be falling back a bit there from the lower reaches of the top 10 in GT, and we'll get a building optimization systems replay of that for you. That was right at Junsao, once again getting into the grass and ending up on the infield actually, so another easy mistake to make. You want to try and maximize the exit at Junsao for the run up the front straight, but unfortunately, there is grass waiting for you if you push a little bit too far. And this battle between Sanders and Machimi has been briefly joined by the BMW of Christian Challoner, but he's going to jet away in front and continue chasing down Racine Fazui for 2nd in GT. But these two, Sanders and Machimi, it's a very interesting battle happening between these two. And I noticed Machimi not going for moves, not firing it up the inside. On the last lap, he lifted off slightly before the braking zone, so just biding his time for now as the Japanese driver.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's just happy, maybe just doing again, fuel saving, just saving that dash of fuel, trying to work his way through that way, and obviously it's easier to pass a car in the pits than it is to pass them out on track, and way earlier out of the throttle there than Graham Sanders into turn 1. So definite fuel saving going on from Machimi. Seen Machimi in other races that we broadcast here on 6Speed TV. Very intelligent driver. So no surprise to see him now just easing off the throttle and taking advantage of any opportunities to save fuel in this early phase of the race. Well, we're at halfway already, actually. I just didn't even realize how far through we were.
Yeah, we are indeed. Yep, 46 minutes to go in this race, and these guys having a bit of traffic to deal with. Riley Downey still circulating around the circuit, but looks like a very clean negotiation of that for all drivers involved. So Machimi and Sanders resume play there. And that's another part of the reason why you'd see drivers fuel saving, because they would see that you're coming up to traffic and there would be no use pushing as hard as you can and potentially trying to go for a move if there is traffic, and you could afford to just save a bit of extra fuel on the way. Will Hardiman has decided to make a tour through the pits here and get some service done to that car. Jack Anderek has got Adam Crane for company here in the big bone car. Side by side on the run up to Junsao, potentially, no.
whether it was Sam Holden that they were just getting past there. The other of
My
the big bone racing cars is the big bone drivers out there. As we just see Lockwood and Caron side by side again.
Oh, here we go. On for the lead in GS, and it looks like Lockwood back through into the lead of the secondary class here in the Geodesic GoPro Championship at Interlagos. But Caron, you can see, still putting a huge amount of pressure on. Very late on the brakes coming into Ferradura. You got to trail brake this car. You've got to get on the throttle and stay on the throttle just past the apex. This is an incredibly fun car to drive. And Caron pushing it to its max here, but Lockwood, you definitely think is the one in the box seat here.
That depends though. If Caron saved a lot of fuel while he was behind in those, that middle phase of this stint, they could be very, very even in regards to how long they need to pit for. And Tipton could be the one that might be in trouble. He might lose a lot of ground. I mean, he's only a second and a half back at the moment, but he could lose a huge amount of ground based on that. So that'll be interesting to see when we come up to pit stops. We're about 10 minutes away from everyone coming to the pits. Seen a couple of drivers come in for a quick splash of fuel or maybe a little bit of damage fix, but the main pit stops are probably 10 minutes away, only 5 laps or so. That is going to make the race very, very interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is. Right at the halfway point, we're going to see, oh, goodness me, Christian Challoner making his way through those top two in GS. Caron, I think, won't be too happy with how that move was made, but looks like Lockwood is going to get pushed out wide slightly as well. And here comes an Action Sim Sports Audi to join the party.
Yep, that is Aiden Gober trying to get back up under the lead. Adam Crane in the pits. So one of our first front-running cars is in. So Crane, of course, was in 6th position, tucked in behind Andrak. He's decided he's had enough of looking at the back of Andrak's car, as I've accidentally clicked the wrong button there.
Whoops.
It's all right, we're all good. So Crane now will be the first one that will get a real gauge on how pit stops are going to affect the cars, where drivers will come out, how much time they lose, and how much fuel they need to take. 20-second pit stop for Crane. So that seems to be a fuel-only stop. Away he goes again.
All right, so we have a number to work with now for fuel stops in the GT class. About 20 seconds we should expect drivers to stay still for. Our leader, Tyson Meyer, has a lot of opportunities here to play around with the strategy. He doesn't have to worry too much about the way this race goes, because he's got a 6-second lead in the GT class. He could definitely afford to play around with the pit stops a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Have a look at the lap times he's doing, though. He's only 0.2 of a second off his best lap there on lap number 30 in this stint. So he saved the tyres very well as well. So that's a big key, as I've just seen Will Hardiman back in the pits again. So Hardiman's still having issues with his car. But Caron trying to get back through on Lockwood. But on Tyson Meyer, I think now he's just going to cruise himself now to make sure he doesn't have any issues. He's going to be a little bit more cautious when he comes through traffic. And that will make it a little bit interesting. And the first of our GS pitters now in the stop, that being Machimi.
Right, so Machimi going for the early stop there. And be interesting to see how the guys around him respond. People like Graham Sanders. And it looks like Adam Crane avoiding the pits there as the car in front of him decides to jump in. Older Stepanovsky from 13th place. So we're seeing the race start to come alive once again in the GT class. But what are our top 3 in GS going to do? I tell you what, there could be some huge gains to be made if you decide to not pit on the same lap as the guys around you.
Yeah, but which move do you do? Do you overcut or undercut?
That is the question.
You need a crystal ball to know which one's right. And have a look at the pace from Tyson Meyer right now. Fastest lap of the race on lap 31.
God. What?
How has he got the tyres to hold on this long? Seriously, how is he doing it?
Yeah, that's crazy, because we've seen that the tyres, when they go off, they really go off in these cars in the past, but I guess Maya and the Geodesic Racing crew have been working very well on making the tyres last in that Audi. So for him to still be having that level of pace at this point in the race without changing tyres, yeah, that is quite impressive.
Interesting to see if he's still got that sort of pace after he puts half a tank of fuel in the car very, very soon. So that'll be interesting. Caron out of the throttle really early. So my thoughts may have been just confirmed there about how is Caron saving fuel, and did he save a big chunk of fuel early on? I'm going to put my foot back in the Caron camp here, because while we knew that Lockwood was saving fuel once he tucked in behind Caron, that fuel saving then, that was a huge amount of fuel saving. He was out very, very early.
Yeah, the plan, I think, has been made obvious here for Andrew Caron, and we'll wait and see how it plays out in the next few laps. Side by side, though, Marcus Deck and Graham Sanders. That's for third and fourth there. That's for fourth and fifth, sorry. So Deck making his way past Sanders. All good, man. Back into fourth place then for the Sim Racing Channel machine. Yeah.
My first day clicking buttons behind the scenes.
Look, honestly, it is quite early in the morning for us here in Australia. This is an American series, but we are an Australian broadcasting company, so it is a 7 a.m. start for me here in Perth, and you're having sim racing for breakfast, Jay.
Always. I mean, I have sim racing for breakfast most days anyway, but yeah, to actually be live early in the morning, it's a nice change. Saying that, got another early start on Sunday. Of course, we start the iRacing Grand Prix series. Of course, the Formula One cars on iRacing back broadcast once again. We'll be broadcasting that from 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Of course, 2 weeks' time, Daylight Savings ends here in, or 3 weeks' time in the eastern side of the country, which then makes the race 6 a.m. So, looking forward to that 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. But that is the 8 p.m. GMT time slot. So if you are looking to race in the iRacing F1 series, the iRacing Grand Prix series, official races Friday and Saturday night GMT. Check out the forum. Shameless plug. Hopefully we can see you in the broadcaster on the race. It'll be a very, very fun race and series to broadcast. It's always an interesting car, and strategy is so big in those cars as well.
Yeah, definitely. That Williams FW31 legendary machine, and making his way through our top two in GS at the moment is Jack Anderek, and our leader Brian Lockwood still just holding on here. Looking at pit stop times, noticing that I think Dan King and Older Stepanovsky and Hayden Dober, they might have taken tyres, because their pit stops twice as long as Adam Crane's was.
The other thing, of course, we saw Hayden Gober come in really early. I think the amount of time that he'll stop for confirms that he may have he may not have put fuel in the car at the start of the race. I think he started his car on qualifying fuel, which just caught him out. So that's why I think his stop was so long, way out of sequence. On lap 7 he stopped, so he had all sorts of dramas there. But looks like the battle in GS has sort of died down a little bit, because there is a fair bit of traffic. But drivers starting to come into the pits though, and one thing that we can't discount in this race, of course, I was just brought up about this in the YouTube chat. Big hello to everyone that is watching us on YouTube. Of course, very, very chatty bunch on YouTube, and also live on Twitch and Facebook. Is Christian Challoner always, we've seen it in every broadcast race I've ever watched with Christian Challoner, whether it's oval, whether it's road, whether it be the majors series, where we've got the combination of the two. Challoner knows how to pull a cat out of the bag and do something very, very different from everyone else, and somehow find himself up a lot higher than you would expect. That's why he's won championships in nearly every series this run. It's great to have him out on track. I'm excited to see what he has got in store here. Has he been saving bucket loads of fuel, and that's why his pace is a little bit slow and he's going to come through the field at the end? Or has he got something else going on in that head there, why he's now starting to move his way forward at this point of the race?
Well, Challoner is certainly a good steerer. Oh my goodness, yes. Wow, okay, wasn't quite expecting this. Oh my goodness. Justin Tipton heading to the inside. He's going to try for it on Caron, but he's going to hold on there. Lockwood remaining in the lead of the GS class. They come right back together, these guys.
Awesome battle between these three. I was looking at the timing and it said like 0.4 of a second between them. I wasn't stressed, and then all of a sudden my timing screen lit up, showing them side by side. I didn't expect it, but Lockwood somehow has got away with it. Just seen Jason Goddard in the pits, and he has missed his pit box and is reversing down the pit lane. Be careful doing that. He's safe.
All right, good stuff. Well, he has to do a bit of a 3-point turn here, and he's having to travel back a little bit further too. So, unfortunate there for Jason. He's going to lose a lot of time out of that. Overshooting your pit box is one of the most demotivating errors someone can make in sim racing.
Oh no.
Oh no, what?
I think he's just been disqualified for driving backwards on the circuit.
Oh no. Well, our commiserations then to Jason Goddard. So an unfortunate run there for him.
Just also been reminded by race control that there's a few drivers that have the potential to maybe get drive-through penalties based on incident points as well. So, be interesting to see how that plays out. We don't have the numbers in front of us, so we don't know where anyone is. Well, I know I don't have the numbers. You might, Bruce. You might have been lucky. I don't. Are any of these top guys in trouble?
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see about that, because there has been some biff and barge, some travelling off the circuit. So Brian Lockwood getting a bit of an advantage there, thanks to Aaron Ackles making his way through. But we know that it's very easy for Caron to catch back up in this GS class.
Speaking of catching up, have a look at how close the gap has got. Tyson Meyer has been really, really caught out by traffic. And that gap's gone from 6 seconds down to 3 seconds. So has he either burnt up the tyres? As we said, he was going at a very, very quick pace only about 4 or 5 laps ago. Are the tyres gone, or is he just getting held up with traffic? I think it might be the traffic one, but can't discount that it's tyres being worn. Or in saying that, for Zui, last lap by set his fastest lap of the race. So could be a combo of the two.
Yeah, certainly could be. I mean, Meyer's lap 35 was about 2 seconds longer than what he usually runs. Oh no, that's Andrew Taylor running 10th place there in the GT
I got nervous
class.
for a second then.
Yeah, me too. That's a very awkward spot on the circuit for that to happen. That's down at Interlagos. So Taylor, I think, just dragging the brakes a bit too much, pinching the rears, and around he went. And that was right in the middle of the circuit. Goodness me, that could have ended up much worse than it did.
The nervous little time when that sort of thing happens too, because you see all of those cars behind you, you know you're going to have to get out of the way for them. And at that point, it sort of almost kills your concentration, and somehow something weird goes on in the back of your head and you do something that you've never done before and you spin out. I've done it many times. I'm not sure about you, Reese, but I know I have, because I'm useless. Half the reason why I don't race anymore. But if I haven't got anyone bagging me out, I have to do it myself, I think. But it does affect you when you see, say, 3 or 4 cars coming up behind you that are about to lap you, and you've got traffic everywhere, and you're by yourself. There's something that goes on in the back of your head that goes, well, I'm just going to try and do something like I always do, or just drive normally. And you don't. You do something completely different to what you normally do. You spin out and almost cause a big one. Andrew Taylor got lucky there, but I know that is what has happened there. He's just made it the smallest error, concentrating on what's going on in the background as opposed to what's going on ahead.
Yeah, it's an easy mistake to make in a race like this. You know, multi-class GT racing, there is a lot to keep track of when you're out there on the circuit. And headlights are on for all these guys because we are going into the night. It is 6:41 p.m. in sim time as we see Jack Anderek jump into the pits in the Big Bone Racing Audi. So this race is going to finish under lights. And Tyson Meyer still holding on to that lead. It's back out to about 4 seconds now, that lead between himself and Rasim Fazui. So Meyer has gotten a bit of his pace back here.
Yeah, look at the last lap time again. He's back into the 32, mid-32s again. So they're just going lap time for lap time. One will do a 32, one will do a 33, and then they'll go back the other way. So it's going to continue on. So we're into the final half an hour. The predictometer, which is very, very well known here at SimSpeed TV, is saying that we've got 20 laps of racing to go. So see if that's correct. The original predictometer at the start of the race actually said 58 laps of racing. So I'll be impressed if that's what we get to.
Yeah.
It's actually
I'll be
on track
impressed
to
as
be
well.
correct.
Yeah, all right, cool.
That doesn't happen ever.
No, it's always a momentous occasion when the predictometer gets something right. So John Botifer jumping into the pits. Unfortunately, he overshot his pit box in his GS Porsche, so he's going to lose out here to Giovanni Romano. And Romano doing very well there to hold on to that position.
Andrew Taylor in as well. Looking at pit stop times for the guys in the GS class, under 10-second pit stop, so about half the amount of time that we're seeing in the GT class. Aaron Ackles now comes in, so only the top 5 and Mark Noski left to pit in GT. GS, nearly everyone left to pit, over half the field left to go, so we'll see who comes in next. Will Tyson Meyer come in this lap? I'm going to say he's going to go one more, but you never know in these series. You just always expect the unexpected. Well, I think we'll see one more, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he comes into the pits this time by, yep, he's going all the way over to the right. He's taken the racing line. So I think we did see from Tyson Meyer as Mark Noski jumps in. That's another car down. Meyer as, oh, hello, Challoner in 2 from 3rd. But we have seen Meyer extend his stints out in previous rounds of this series. He likes to go for those long runs, so he might just be pushing as far as he can on that fuel tank and then doing a splash and dash at the end.
Yep, exactly right. He'll probably run it to almost dry and you know, almost be at the risk of running out of fuel. That's how far he pushes it. Jesper Dralica in as well. Christian Challoner was driving the Coke Series as well, so very, very quick at road and oval. Good to see Christian out there driving the Coke Series. Be interesting to see how he goes here. 19-second stop, so second shortest stop out of this lead group. He was a little bit slower than Andrak, but he was slower in his time in the lane. Dralica slower pit stop, but same time in the lane. So Challoner's lost a little bit of time in the pit lane. Did notice that he locked the brakes coming into the pits, and that did cost him probably a second and a half, which is about the amount of time he lost in his stop. So Dralica gains a second and a half or so back, but still 10 seconds back after his incident earlier on. That damage is definitely affecting the car a little bit for Jesper Dralica.
Yeah, it definitely is, and you would think a mid-engine GT3 car like the McLaren, aerodynamically dependent, you get some damage on that thing and you're not going to have a great time.
Tyson Meyer
Between Graham Sanders then and John Miller, yeah, as we do see our race leader come into the pits, it's going to be a pass in our GS class potentially into turn 1, but oh, it looks like managing to get it done was Miller in the center S. So Sanders back to 6th there. Miller continuing his fight up. Now we'll turn our attention to Tyson Meyer, see how long his pit stop is. Revving up the engine, he's ready to go as we're side by side between Miller and Sanders, and a little bit of contact as well. Sanders trying his best to hold on around the outside, but nothing doing there. Miller just had the extra grip on the inside.
Tyson Meyer, 20-second stop, so about the same as everyone else.
All right. So a consistent stop there from Tyson Meyer, and he should hold on to the race lead when the field cycles through. Here is the Building Optimization Systems replay of that incident between Sanders and Miller. A little bit of contact there as they came into the braking zone. Very lucky that one of them didn't go off from that.
100%. That was a very, very scary little moment there for those guys. So lucky to get away with it. Just seen Zach Plummer in the pits, but he's had a very, very long stop. So Plummer now stopped for 30 seconds plus. He'll be feeling the pressure now, and here comes Fuzui. Will he come into the pits? Yes, he does. 25 minutes left on the clock, so he hasn't got long left to go. Will he pull it up? Ooh, not a bad stop there. Not a bad pull up for the line. Maybe on the brakes a tiny little bit too early, but better to be a tiny little bit too early than a tiny little bit too fast. Have to serve a stop and hold, which I'm going to guess Zach Plummer may have done.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that. Zach Plummer pulling away and back out onto the circuit. And now Tyson Meyer coming through to cross the line, and Rasim Fuzui still stationary, and he is only just going now. So Meyer looks like that lead is very well protected for him.
Yeah, Fuzui's got to be a little bit careful because, of course, the tyres would have pulled off a tiny little bit here, which means that the pace will come back to them later on. Almost off the circuit there, Fuzui. I think Fuzui might have gained maybe a second or two in the stop, though, because like the gap doesn't look as big as it did before. In an actual time here, it looks like about 2.5 seconds. I think Fuzui may have gained maybe 2 seconds in that stop.
Yeah, so a very good stop then for Rasim Fuzui, but unfortunately not close enough to make a move on Tyson Meyer yet. But we'll see how he approaches these last 20 minutes of the race. He could still get up to the back of Meyer, but we know how fast he is. Our top three in GS have still not pitted. Lockwood, Caron, and Tipton very spaced out now, nowhere near as close as they were in the past. So there's going to be a bit more room for these guys to work with. Chris Roberts and Alan Powell trying some side-by-side action here. Geodesic versus Deep Eddy Racing. Look at that.
I thought Powell was going to throw it up there and maybe make contact. I'm glad he backed out of that at the last second. So
it's tempting. It's tempting to go there through Ferradura because it opens up, but got to remember it's a double apex, so you're going to have to turn a bit more tightly anyway. It looks like he's going to lose advantage there with some lapping traffic coming through.
To this battle between Miller and Sanders, they're back nose to tail once again after that contact we saw earlier. Wasn't much contact, but it was enough to unsettle Sanders, and I think Sanders will be a little bit upset with how that played out there, because Miller, I mean, it's hard to sort of say that they both just sort of went into each other, didn't they? Neither of them held their line. That's what I was trying to say there.
Yeah, Miller squeezed Sanders a little bit, and Sanders went to the left just a tiny bit as well. So it was a pretty standard racing incident for my money. But you know, obviously from Sanders' perspective, I would be a bit miffed as well if there was a bit of contact like that.
I don't think race control will have anything to say about it either, because it was it's pretty soft contact, but just one of those unfortunate little bits of contact. Now we're at the point now where Lockwood could really start to squeeze the neck on this field and, you know, start to apply the pressure. Last lap by 1 minute 39.4, which is only 65 thousandths of a second off his best lap in the race on lap number 41.
That's good consistency, and I think the conditions will be helping as well, because the sun is down and, you know, it's going into night. It means that the track is going to be cooler. It's at 26 degrees Celsius at the moment, so a little bit of a cooler track means that there is a little more grip available than if it was super hot. So Lockwood working very well on that pace in that Cayman at the moment.
Yes.
Still has yet to pit though.
Yep. He'll probably come in. We're looking at, we've got 14, 13 laps to go, so it won't be too long before they have to come in. The fuel tank was restricted in these cars to ensure that they would need to pit. So we'll see if or how long they extend the fuel out when they will pit. Gap at the front is 2.3 seconds. Christian Challoner not able to come back. Challoner's pace is nowhere near as quick as these other two in front. After the pit stops, his pace has dropped off a little bit, so Challoner probably will be a little bit disappointed with how that's going at the moment. But this battle between Miller and Sanders is going to continue on for the next little while, just based on traffic. They keep bringing them back together, these two.
Yeah, they can't seem to leave each other alone, can they? And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing that battle continue on. And Sanders is doing very well to stay with Miller here, and you see just how much of the curbs they use in those GT4s. Sanders getting a slightly better run there, coming down the front stretch, but are they going to go for the pits? Is Miller going to go for the pits?
Oh, what a fake!
Goodness me, that was incredibly close, side by side, then down the front stretch, and we know you can go around the outside, but squeezing again is Miller. Gives Sanders just enough room this time, and they sort themselves out. What's going to happen down at Interlagos, though, because Sanders, I reckon, is going to get a bit of a run here.
100% will have a bit of a run, but will he be able to use it is the other question. We've already seen these two make contact just here and backing out of the throttle there, Sanders. So Sanders is just trying to play a little bit of mind games at the moment. I think he's trying to unsettle the car of John Miller, but we've seen throughout this series last season that Miller is very, very hard to unsettle. Espinosa's in the pits too. I just want to sidetrack for a second. But he's going backwards down the pit lane, so I think he may about to get himself right on cue, gets disqualified.
Okay, so that's unfortunate. It's a bit, I guess, as the light levels go down and you've been focusing on your racing, difficult to remember exactly where your pit box is, and when it's dark, well, you know, you do have a few visual cues to tell you where the pit box is, but still quite easy to miss. It's unfortunate that we've had more than one driver's race today end that way, but that's just how it works sometimes.
Yeah, something the drivers will probably practice a little bit before next round, I'm going to guess. Now, remember before the pit stop, we saw a little battle between two GT cars right in the mid-pack, 5th and 6th, Andrak and Crane. Crane wasn't happy with how defensive Andrak was and decided to pit a little bit earlier. Guess what? They're back together again. They get in the band back together, and here comes the battle.
Yeah, and Andrak is in front, throwing those blocks, and they got a bit of traffic. Right up ahead of them, that's Giovanni Romano in the lavender Porsche, and Marcus Deck in the pits then.
Here we go.
So, taking his stop. The Crane and Anderek battle continues as we see all potential side-by-side running. No, that's Christian Challoner making his way through on the Sanders and Miller battle. So those guys staying reasonable there. And Adam Crane and Jack Anderek down at turn 1 and 2. Gap staying consistent between them as well. So I think Adam Crane is not going to be too happy that he has that car in front of him.
Yeah, he's had good pace in the last few laps, so Crane will be upset, maintaining the gap of around about 5 to 6 tenths in a second. This battle between Miller and Sanders, this has been on all race long, these two. I mean, Miller was up in that lead pack for a tiny little bit, but as soon as he dropped from that lead pack, he and Sanders have gone at it, and Miller's around. What's happened to Miller?
Oh.
He's made a big mistake.
Oh my goodness, yes, huge mistake there from Miller. It looks like that happened all on his own there. Replay then. Just getting on the throttle, the rear wheels spun up through the hairpin just at the wrong time, and around he went. It's just one of those minor slides that turned into something more for John Miller, so that's a real shame. Not how I wanted to see that battle end.
Hayden Gober's come back into the pits for his second stop, so that all but confirms that he did start with the wrong amount of fuel and it had to come in and put in a second load of fuel. So unfortunate night for Hayden Gober, but he'll come back, bounce back bigger, better, stronger from this one. Battles at the front, 2.5 seconds between Tyson Meyer and Rasim Fazui. So that battle's staying pretty consistent between 2 and 2.5 seconds. Lockwood to Caron, since it's broken to about a second, has stayed at around about the second bracket. So these two are going to be in an interesting fight here when these pit stops come about. They can't be too far away. 15 minutes left on the clock with Marcus Deck coming in and making his stop already. We will see pit stops very, very soon, I think, between these two.
Yeah, we certainly will. Everyone in the GT classes come into the pits now, so that field and that order has been decided. But GS, that is another story. The top 6 in this class have not the top 5, sorry, have not made their way into the pits yet, and Alan Powell still has yet to come into the lane as well. And that is another going the wrong way down pit lane deal for Luis Henriquez, taking his GS car into the pits. Not quite sure how that ended up.
I think most people would know that their pit box is on the left, wouldn't they? There's obviously something else going on. I think he's probably just locked it up as he's come in and the car's shot off to the right a little bit. Go back in the field a little bit, watch some of these other battles, because there are still battles going on back in the field. Caleb, John Lavender and Sam Holden separated by 0.8 of a second at the moment. They're still going at it. So good to see battles still back in the field. But we're going to go back to that Andrak and Crane battle. Still at 0.5 a second. Crane will be wanting to get this done as Miller's in the pits now too. Sanders in.
Right, and it makes sense for Miller to jump into the pits there after his spin. Doesn't have much to fight for versus Sanders. And Brian Lockwood facing a bit of difficulty there. He had traffic from his class and the former David Browning, and he had Tyson Meyer making his way through too. So this has brought Andrew Caron back up again, but he could potentially fall down thanks to those cars making his way past him. So Lockwood back onto the start-finish stretch then. We'll keep an eye on him and see if he decides to go for the pits this time round. Will he? Yes, he will. He's going for it. And will Caron follow him in? No. Interesting.
Wow.
Okay. So Caron thinks he might be able to have a bit of extra pace if he stays out an extra lap.
He needs to put in a qualifying lap this lap to try and get that gap back down. It was around about 0.9 of a second. If he can put in a qualifying lap right now, he may take the lead of the race before the end of this pit stop cycle. So it's going to be the lap of Andrew Caron's life right now. Adam Crane, Jack Andrak, nose to tail now. This battle's got very, very close.
Yeah, certainly has. They are nose to tail, 4th, 5th and 6th in the GT class, and Adam Crane, it seems, is the faster of the two. Jack Anderek setting a 33.9 there and a 33.7 for Adam Crane. So the battle is on between those two. Anderek, it seems, able to get slightly better exits there, and you see Crane just struggling to put the power down out of the center S, so he's lost more ground once again.
Lockwood, 10-second pit stop. Caron now will have to come in now.
Justin Tipton has come into the pits as well. 9.2 second stop for him. That's a very good stop, actually. It's one of the fastest we've seen from the GS class. Only one faster was Alan Powell, 9.1 seconds. So we'll see what Andrew Caron can do here, how much fuel he has saved, how short his pit stop is going to be. And you would think he would have to come in this time by, but it doesn't look like he is. Oh no. Yes, no, maybe? Yes. Yep. There we go. It's always hard to tell with this pit entry at Interlagos whether or not drivers are going to go for their stop. But Caron, here we go. And there's Lockwood. Caron will be just pulling up to his box now.
Caron's
I think Lockwood's got this.
Yeah, well, Caron's in lap was 0.2 of a second, nearly 0.3 of a second faster than Lockwood's in lap. So if he has saved a little bit of fuel, 7.1 second pit stop, 3-second faster stop for Caron. Caron's going to take the lead of the race.
Oh my goodness, he is out. He's out of the pit lane. He's going to have to race this pit exit here. It's a bit of the racetrack almost at Interlagos. He is ahead, but Lockwood, here we go. This is going to be a great battle for the finish in GS. I've been looking forward to this all night long, all morning long for us. Andrew Caron, he's got a bit of an advantage here because Lockwood's had to deal with some GT3 cars coming through on him, but with those tyres being at a standstill for a bit, they would have lost some of their temperature. He's going to have to get it back up.
And also the big question as well is fuel. Has he put enough fuel in the tank? Because that is the shortest stop out of everyone. We've seen 8, 9, 10-second stops. Nobody was even close to 7. He's at the bottom end of 7 seconds, almost a 6.9 second stop, 7-second flat. So Caron, I'm surprised in one aspect, but wowee, this is going to be interesting. Will he be able to hold on to this position. He's got 7 laps to go. If he can hold on here, that would be a fantastic drive, but 7 laps, a long way to go around this circuit. Andrew Caron, if you could hold on here, you deserve this win.
But has he done the math is the question we need to ask, because we don't have all the numbers available to us here. The drivers will be aware of what they need to do. It's very close between them for the lead. Less than half a second between Caron and Lockwood now. And Lockwood's going to have to get back on the attack again.
Really needed that outlap to be a little bit faster, but he was so heavy in traffic that really hampered him. You saw when we come back to him, when we were on the onboard there, you saw cars coming past, caught him offline. And you also saw when coming to turn 1, he had cars everywhere as well. So lapping traffic, I should say, really hampered the car of Brian Lockwood. Really got to get his head down and try and work out how he can gain some pace here, because he is now gone from looking like this was an all signed, sealed, delivered win to being on the back foot. He's probably just as surprised by that as us.
Yeah, most likely. And I guess he'll be hoping that Andrew Caron starts coughing on the last lap. We'll have to keep an eye on Caron, see if he starts short shifting at all. But this battle between Anderek and Crane has come back together once again. Crane, it seems, he's able to get up to the back of Anderek, but then makes a small mistake and falls back again. We'll see if he can get the move done successfully this time, because Anderek has been very resilient in holding him off.
Definitely has. He's just done enough, hasn't he? He hasn't been defensive. He's just put his car in perfect spots. So, yeah, a good little battle that's still going on. We will keep an eye on this battle, but we have to go to the battle just up the road only slightly, because there's still nothing separating these two. Lockwood, I think, is playing mind games now with Caron, forcing him to use as much fuel as he can. That lap by Lockwood, 39.5, 39.8 for Caron. So a little bit faster, 0.3 of a second faster for Brian Lockwood. He is starting to put the pressure on big time now.
Here we go. And that is a great tactic that you can see being used occasionally. If a guy has a quicker pit stop than you, push him hard out on track, force him to use the fuel that he was hoping to have saved.
Oh, traffic
and they got
everywhere.
Some traffic. Yep, traffic everywhere, traffic passing, traffic going to be passed. That's brought Lockwood to a bit of a disadvantage here. Oh no, contact! Chris Roberts in the Geodesic car, having to let all these guys through. No. Caron almost made contact there, and Crane is going to try and get past Anderek in the midst of all this contact for Lockwood there versus Chris Roberts. So Brian Lockwood at a huge disadvantage here now. And Adam Crane finally through on Jack Anderek.
Yeah, Lockwood's got to do all this work again. He's lost about a second just in that little battle pack there. So, yeah, just unfortunate. I think if the lap down GS car wasn't there, I think it would have been okay, but that really hurt Lockwood, and the laps are just starting to tick away. Only 5 laps to go, and here comes Crane. Crane has actually got through there, and Andrak's going to come back. This has been a really good fight here.
Yeah, it has. Oh, contact there, no! And they're both gone! They are both gone! They just made contact side by side in the braking zone. Adam Crane has continued on, but oh my goodness, Jack Anderek on his roof. And he was on for a top 5 as well. That's going to be a very bitter way for the race to end for 5th place there. Building optimization systems replay. So you see Anderek going to the outside. Crane is going to start moving over to take the racing line into turn 1, but unfortunately Anderek was there and they made contact.
Wowee. That will be discussed ad nauseum post-race.
That certainly will, and I don't envy race control at this stage, because
those are the incidents you like to say, your turn, guys, you have that one. We'll just sit back and watch.
That's it. That's why I'm more than happy to be the shouty man up in the virtual comms box. But this battle for the lead in GS still continuing, and Lockwood pushing very hard, getting off the circuit in a couple of places. extracting as much pace as he can from this Cayman, and you can see he's already got the gap back down to 0.7 of a second. He is flying at the moment.
Yeah, I think fuel is the issue here for Karen. I think he has got to save a little bit more fuel. He's not quite there. He hasn't reached that magic number. And of course, the other thing with being the slower class or the secondary class is you've got to hope that the main class driver crosses the line at the right time, because you could have to go an extra lap from your original thinking in regards to how long a race is. So that could play into Lockwood's favour here.
Yeah, it definitely could. That's one thing you have to consider in endurance racing, is the time of the race is determined by when the overall leader crosses the line. So if you're in the lower class, your race depends just as much on how the top class race goes. And here we go then, Brian Lockwood drafting up to the back of Andrew Caron here, and they are now almost bumper to bumper. So Lockwood getting that pace on very nicely, and you can see Andrew Caron is his car behavior is looking a bit more timid than it was before.
I think Lockwood will wait to make this move. I think he's going to sit behind, force Caron to use fuel, wait until under a minute to go on the clock, and then try and make the move. That's how I think it's going to play out. It could be completely wrong, and Caron could also be playing chicken. He might be completely fine on fuel, but he might be making Lockwood think that he's in trouble with fuel. So many different possibilities. This is why I love this sort of racing. This is why I love this series, and I'm so glad it's back.
Yeah, I'm glad it's back too, and I'm glad we've got this fantastic Porsche Cayman GT4 to watch as well. The newest car on the iRacing service, and it is for sale on your iRacing account. You can pick it up and give it a whirl around magnificent tracks like Interlagos yourself. What a fun car it is. But Andrew Caron still just holding on, and Lockwood keeping the gap consistent in a straight line. Tyson Meyer still nice and comfortable in the lead of this race by 3 seconds from Racim Fazui, who's just making his way past Shinya Michimi right now, lapping.
Now,
it's been a good race from Meyer.
Yeah, it has been very, very consistent. Got bad news though. The predictometer will be wrong. It will be out by 1 lap. But of course, it doesn't take into account pit stops. So I think that's caught out the predictometer a little bit. It's going to finish with about... They'll cross the line with around about 15 seconds after the clock hits 0. So pretty close, pretty close. We'll say that it's as a win.
Yeah, that's it. So race controllers decided that the incident between Crane and Anderek is going to be a post-race review. So obviously they've decided it needs a lot more further looking at.
Yeah, they'll be wanting to check throttle and things like that. So they'll be waiting for the race to end so they can check a little bit more info around that incident, because yeah, it was just bizarre, wasn't it? Number one didn't need to happen, but it was just weird how it all played out. So, yeah, I'm surprised that incident happened, but I mean, I'm not surprised they come together.
Our leader! Tyson Meyer!
No.
He's just made contact. Zach Plummer had an incident, and in his recovery, Meyer got into him. So that's trouble there for our race leader.
Wow.
Let's have a look at this then. Building optimization systems replay. Zach Plummer making his way through the hairpin section. And you'll notice he gets onto the grass here, and it results in a bit of a tank slapper. There's Meyer behind the GS car. Plummer back onto the circuit, and there's Meyer right there, right into the wall. That's a big hit, and that has put Tyson Meyer in a lot of trouble. He still holds on to the race lead, though. Only just from Racim Fazui. For now. They've got mere seconds to go in this race. 55 seconds. This is going to be the last lap. So, Tyson Meyer with a heavily damaged car in these final few laps. Can he hold off Racim Fazui? A completely fine car in second place.
Oh, wow. That's just thrown the biggest curveball. We were not expecting that at all. And now, Tyson Meyer, you can see the damage. Have a look at how bad the side of that car is. And Fuzui's just so much quicker through the corners because Tyson Meyer's got nothing left in the car. The tyres are probably screaming for mercy as well based on that. Look at the damage.
Yeah, Myers going to have to go massively defensive in these last couple of corners, and he's going to be down on straight line speed as well thanks to that damage. So potentially Fuzui could take victory here. The clock reaches 0. This is going to be white flag, and that is a lifeline there for Tyson Meyer. His teammate in the GS car just holding up Fuzui enough. Can he hold on? Fuzui starting to gain in that straight line speed, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Tyson Meyer through the final turn, almost side by side across the line. It is going to be Tyson Meyer who takes victory here in the Geodesic GoPro Championship at Interlagos. 0.04 of a second at the very end of it. Oh my goodness, yes, Lockwood. We've still got a race going on in the GS class too. Pass for the lead happens down at Decido del Lago between Brian Lockwood and Andrew Caron. Bit of contact there. Caron comes back at him. The over-under is done, and they've got a GT car coming through here. Andrew Taylor, he could potentially mix this up here. He's through on Lockwood. He's trying to hold it round the outside. Caron could be in trouble here too. Lockwood trying his best to find any space he can to take victory here. It's going to be variance of lines then in the hairpin section. And it could be one final dive down at Junsao. Caron going slightly defensive there. He knows he's in trouble here. What's going to happen down at Junsao then? Caron has a good gap. I don't think Lockwood's close enough. A little bit of a slide from Lockwood. I don't think he's got it.
It's going to come down to fuel, isn't it? Has he got enough?
Well, he's running the revs all the way to the red line is Andrew Caron. And it looks like he is just going to hold on here for victory in the GS class. What a great strategy call from Andrew Caron. Fuel saved him there as he saved fuel.
Wowee, what a race. What a fantastic race the whole way through. Two class battles separated by, well, the furthest class battle was half a second. You can't ask for much more than that in a 90-minute endurance race. That's incredible.
That is excellent stuff from all the drivers putting on a fantastic show. So Andrew Caron, your victor in the GS class, he will certainly be wrapped with that. And on that note, on a very dark Interlagos, we take a look at our official race results. Tyson Meyer for Geodesic Racing taking victory from Rasim Fuzui by just 0.04 of a second, holding off with damage. Christian Challoner finishes on the podium. Fantastic run from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series driver. Jesper Drilica holds on for 4th in his McLaren, overcoming his damage from before. A minute 13 behind our winner, Adam Crane, comes home, but he could potentially face race control after this one. Aaron Ackles finishes in 6th, the last car on the lead lap. Zach Plummer, Stacey Dunnigan, Hayden Gobert, and Mark Noski rounding out your top 10 in GT.
We got Elijah Mitchell and Andrew Taylor next with Will Hardiman and Jack Andrak. Chris Ugletta, who did not finish the race in the end, with Older Stefanowski and Jason Goddard. Dan King had to abort 3/4 of the way into the race, and Johan Boyson we saw out with issues early on. I'm going to say he had tech issues because his incidents were very, very strange, so unfortunate for him. As we now go to the GS results.
Yes, Andrew Caron taking victory from Brian Lockwood with a fantastic strategy call when it came to the pit stops. Justin Tipton makes it 2 Racecraft Esports cars on the podium in GS. Marcus Deck managing to recover to finish 4th, but he'll be hoping for better next time. After all, he did start on pole. Shinya Machimi making it top 5. Says fuel saving worked out very well on the Ronin Sim Sport machine. Graham Sanders makes it home in 6th place, holding off John Miller, who unfortunately suffered issues in the last running of the race. Giovanni Romano completes the top 8 there, and the top 10 rounded out by John Botifer and Luke Wojtaszek.
Turn my microphone back on. We've got Alan Powell next, and then Caleb Lavender next as well in 12th position. Chris Roberts in 13th with Sam Holden 14th. Luis Enriquez in 15th and Riley Downey 16th. A little bit of attrition at the bottom here with David Browning finishing 3 laps behind the leaders. Andreas Espinosa and Justin Rem both disqualified due to reversing in the pit lane.
So that rounds out your field for this one. And wow, I cannot quite believe the racing that we got here today. We'll wait on driver interviews, but before that point, we'll go on a very quick break here on the iRacing Esports Network, bringing you post-race in just a few moments' time. This is the Geodesic GoPro Championship from Interlagos, round 1.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett low. 4 wide at the stripe. For all his work here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's over the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Oh, big crash! Oh my goodness! Half the field's gonna get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
It's post-race time here for the Geodesic GoPro Championship on the iRacing Esports Network, a SimSpeed TV presentation. Well, after a fantastic 90 minutes of multi-class GT endurance racing, we have our results and we have our winners and our losers of this first round of the season. We're going to talk to the race winner of our GT class first, Tyson Meyer. Tyson, that was quite the finish there, quite the final couple of laps for you. But other than that, we'll think about the rest of the race first. Your car seemed hooked up.
Yeah, car felt pretty good. The start was a little awkward, but we'll get it going, as the league progresses here. And the car felt good. It's still adjusting to the new tire model, but felt pretty good.
Yeah, well, it looked like in terms of the strategy, there wasn't much to it. You decided to go reasonably long on that first stint and make it a shorter one at the end. So, pretty simple way of working out the race.
Yeah, it ended up working out. Tires were down to the right side. Tires were down to about 65% when I went into the pits, and I didn't check it at the end of the race, but the tire wear is definitely increased now since they patched it on Tuesday.
Well, it's obviously you managed to hold on for the win, so it worked out well, but it almost didn't. Just give us your thoughts on that penultimate lap incident.
I just was thinking to myself, why does this happen to me a lot? But it ended up working out. I mean, I barely was able to finish with the win. Not even a car length, I don't think. So uh, Zach just made a mistake. It definitely wasn't on purpose. He just couldn't quite get the car under control on the rejoin, and I thought I gave him enough room, but his car just darted across the track and it slammed me into the wall and got a meatball. But surprisingly, I was able to finish, and even more so surprised to finish first.
Yeah, and finish first you did. So from that spot atop the podium, Tyson, any shout outs and sponsors? Who gets it done for you at Geodesic Racing?
Well, yeah, I just want to thank all the guys at Geodesic that are putting this on and taking their time out of the day to do all the behind the scenes admin work, and you guys for broadcasting it and announcing it. Of course, GoPro for sponsoring it and providing some prizes, and my lovely wife for dealing with me. Okay, great, and of course, Asher Racing for the F64-USB wheel.
Thank you very much, Tyson Meyer, your race winner only just in the GT class. Next up, we're going to go to our GS class winner, Andrew Caron. Welcome to the commentary box, Andrew. It was a difficult season for you at times last year in the Geodesic GoPro Championship, but capping off this first round of the second season with a win must feel good.
Yeah, it really feels good. It kind of sucks for Marcus because he was really fast in practice, and I just saw him spin. But it was a really fun race to race against Brian. Brian is really fast, so just was some really good racing. I was just there for, racing, so just have
Well,
fun.
yeah, well, you say you're there for racing, but you were obviously there for strategy as well because your pit stop about 2 seconds faster than anyone else in the class. So your fuel saving in that first stint worked out really well behind Brian.
Yeah, that's a bit surprising to me because I did save a lot of fuel, but at the same time, I missed my pit box and I had to reverse into it. So I was like, I really thought I would be behind him after the pit stop, but it seems like I was able to be in front and then defend from there.
So how are you finding this Porsche Cayman GT4 in the GS class? Certainly a lot of people have been having fun on it ever since it came out last week on the iRacing service. And you're obviously pacey in this thing. How is it from your perspective?
It's a really fun car, to be honest. It's really different. It's more of you need to keep your momentum into the corner. To be honest, I didn't have that much practice into the car, so I went into the race. I did laps before the race, but uh, it was I was focusing on Sebring instead. But for sure, it's really fun to race this car, and it was my first real race, and I can see that racing against other, it's really fun battling.
Well, with this win, it certainly sets you up for further success as the season goes on. Before we let you go, Andrew, any shout outs, any sponsors? Who gets it done for you?
I would like to thanks my teammates at Mivano. They're really good They're really sorry, they're really good friend. They keep motivating me, and I want to congrats Rasim for his P2 and the GT class.
Thank you very much, Andrew Caron, your race winner there in the GS class in the Porsche Caymans. And now we'll go to our second places in class. First one we're going to talk to is second place in the GT class, Rasim Fazui. My goodness, Rasim, that was quite the race between yourself and Tyson Meyer at the start, getting actually a better jump when the green flag went underway.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. In the race control, it was said we're gonna say when it's green, and Tyson asked, "Hey, what's the procedure?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's a good question." And race control said, "You're gonna hear it." So we're driving, we're pacing, and you just see at the top of the text chat, you see green, 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 and I saw it, and I just went, and I thought Tyson was waiting for an auditive cue in order to go.
All right, so that explains things, and it looks like nothing was done to um, to change that afterwards. So it looks like race control were all right with that. But running second for the vast majority of this race, it seemed like Tyson Meyer had the edge over you in terms of pace more often than not. But you almost got a chance right at the very end with that incident. It was so close between yourself and Tyson.
Yeah. At the beginning, I felt like I had a chance, especially when I let him by. I thought I was gonna save fuel and everything, but then I overheated my tires, and it was just downhill from there. So after the pit stop, it felt good, and I was able to catch him a little bit, but just my pace today wasn't at best in terms of preserving tires. Yes, I was lucky with the incident at the end, but that's not really what I'm aiming for as a race car driver. So I'm gonna put in the work and come back with a better package for next race.
All right, and next race, especially considering your pace in this one, should be a success as well. Thanks for joining us, Rasim Fazui. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank the Movano Racing team for the team and support they always provide. It's always great. I want to thank SimSpeed for the broadcast, and I want to thank all the sponsors involved. I want to thank Geodesic and GoPro for this wonderful series. It was a great first race, and I'm looking forward for the rest of the season.
As are we. That was Rasim Fazui, your second place finisher in the GT class. Brian Lockwood, then, second place in GS. Welcome to the commentary box, Brian. And that must sting a little, losing that victory to Andrew Caron after having such great pace all night. But ultimately, it came down to strategy.
Yeah, it did a little bit. I think traffic played a part in the pit stop swap as well. But you know, the bottom line is Andrew drove a great race. I drove a pretty good race. But Andrew, I think, was a little bit better prepared, and that showed today.
Yeah, well, ultimately, Racecraft Esports showing some great pace in the qualifying, and your teammates Justin Tipton and John Miller showing some good potential as well. There was some unfortunate incidents for John Miller back in the pack, but overall, with those three cars on the grid for Racecraft, you got a good driver lineup to work with there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I think there was some nasty stuff that happened to every single GT4 this race.
Yeah.
But yeah, John definitely got the worst of it. He did have some pace in practice, but from the start, I think he got lined up in the wrong spot, and then it just got worse and worse from there. So super bad luck for him this race. But props to Justin as well. He just jumped in the car and did maybe an hour of practice and ended up pretty quick. So it was really cool to see him running in third.
Certainly was. Well, you're the GTD champion from last season, so an opening campaign here in the GS class, a second place to start things off. Certainly shows that you're still up the pointy end of the grid for the season, but we've still got to consider Marcus Deck. He was quite unlucky in this event, and certainly going to be fighting hard with him in future rounds too.
Absolutely. I think, well, there are a few different teams that have some pace here and a few different drivers. It's going to be a very, very interesting season. hopefully I can come out on top, but you never know. We'll see.
We shall see. Brian Lockwood, thank you for joining us. Anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, just thanks to everybody at Racecraft Esports, in particular John, who did most of the testing for this week. I mean, they're just always a great group of people to work with. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you very much, Brian Lockwood, for joining us. And we'll make a slight change to proceedings and bring Justin Tipton into the commentary box for an interview. Sorry to drag you away, Justin, but that third place in the GS class, that was an excellent result for you to bring things home in round one.
I mean, I wanted to do better. I think I ended up with the fastest lap of the race for the GS class, so I think there's more in there. I just got to put more time in.
Yeah, Brian Lockwood was just telling us that you jumped on with an hour of practice. So, I mean, regardless, to be able to work up the pointy end of the grid despite not having as much seat time, it's definitely something positive to come away with in this championship.
Oh, definitely. I showed up today just wanting to get some points because I've had some wrist problems and couldn't practice. So I will take the points. It really all came down to a lucky qualifying lap to get me out of the chaos.
Well, that lucky qualifying lap was what got you there in the end. And that top three battle between yourself, your teammate Brian, and Andrew Caron, it was an absolutely scintillating battle. You guys were right together a lot of the time. How is the racing in this Porsche Cayman GT4? Because that the lack of downforce compared to the GT class certainly makes for some interesting experimentation and lines.
Yeah, I really like it. It's like a GT Skippy to me. It has enough draft that the guy in front of you would have to really be faster. So it keeps things spicy because you can't just drive away from people like you can in, say, a Porsche or GT3 car.
Well, what are your aims then for the remainder of the season? Because that second place for Brian Lockwood and a third for you, double podium for Racecraft Esports. If John Miller can have some better luck in future rounds, you guys might just be able to lock out the podium in some rounds.
That's the goal. I think that'd be super fun. And I think once I can get healed up and we have Sebring this week, so everyone's a little off focus. It'll be interesting. And quite frankly, I don't think any of us know how to set up this car yet. So there's whoever can figure out how to set it up may have some real pace and take the whole thing.
That is a good point you make. Everyone is still learning the ins and outs of this Porsche 718 Cayman. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Justin Tipton. Anyone you'd like to thank?
I want to thank the Racecraft Esports guys for taking me on the team. I'm a really new member, and they've really helped me improve. I've improved a lot in just the 3 months I've been on the team.
Thank you very much, Justin Tipton, and congratulations on your podium. Well, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight, Jay. And as darkness descends over Interlagos, we look back at what was a fantastic opening round of this second season of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. I'm super hyped once again.
I cannot wait for the next round already. We've got 2 weeks to wait for it, but yeah, what a race we've had for race 1 and race 2. Going to be very, very interesting to see. Different format as well next round too. So looking forward to that. I'm just trying to remember where we are for the next round because I do have it in my list of things here, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Let me double check. I've got a feeling, is it Barber that we're at next?
We are visiting a good amount of American tracks in this season.
Yeah, it is Barber.
Yes, indeed. Excellent stuff there. Barber Motorsports Park. It's basically the middle sector of Interlagos repeated again and again and again. A very twisty track. So traffic's going to be quite interesting at that one. That will be this time on March the 26th, March the 27th, if you are in the Oceania region. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. We want to thank GoPro. We want to thank Geodesic Racing for putting this championship together. We want to thank all the drivers and teams for showing up and putting on a fantastic show here on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure to subscribe and also chuck us a sub over at our channel on SimSpeed 2. I've been Reese Gardner. That's been Jay Kennedy, commentating and on cameras. From us here at SimSpeed TV, it's bye for now, but not forever.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Section's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?